culture in the college can be a lot better. So we sort of formed this group, SDS Labs. That is something that helped me prepare a lot at Razorpay. I want to come back to India and start this startup. How much will you earn? I won't earn anything. It'll be zero for quite some time. I think what stuck to us was the opposite. When someone talked about how big it can be. Both me and Harshal had this rule. Both of us won't feel down at the same time. So if I feel down, he will pull me up. Just setting those goals, long-term goals, 2 years, it was crazy how much progress we could make just because we had those goals, right? And we will work towards it.
Hello everyone, this is Abhishek. I'm co-founder of gradCapital. We invest $40,000 in each student startup. We believe students will change the world.
Hi everyone, this is Akshay. I am founder of Stimuler. We were in gradCapital 22 cohort and our app is already in 200 plus countries. And as you can see around us, we are already in the Razorpay office.
We are here in office to meet Shashank. And Shashank is an inspirational person. He graduated from IIT Roorkee in 2012, started Razorpay 20 months after that and worked with a bunch of cool projects while he was in campus. And we're here to talk about his projects that he did in campus and how it shaped him build Razorpay.
And yeah, it's about his college, so it will be fun. Hope you guys like it.
Thanks so much, Shashank, for having us in your office. Ideally, we would have enjoyed going to your campus and taking a walk there in Roorkee and looking at SDS labs and just having a conversation around there. But this is great too. Maybe someday we'll do that. For the people like Shashank is co-founder of Razorpay. Many people know, graduated from IIT Roorkee, studied computer science, graduated in 2012, went to Microsoft, then came back. Lots of stories to unpack there, and then started Razorpay, which makes money flow easier for companies. And today is a $7.5 billion company. So thanks so much, Shashank. I am Abhishek, founder of gradCapital, and we invest in student startups. We believe that students will change the world, and we give them money to build that confidence. To do that, we invest $40,000. And Shashank, we also launched something called Atomic Fellowship. It's a $5,000 grant where people who want to start a project in campus, it's not a company, like maybe like a club, like you started SDS Labs, any project they want to go to a global competition, they can use that money, just fulfill that aspiration. So our goal is to just make students believe in themselves more so that their radical ideas can come to the world.
This is Akshay. So I am the CEO of Stimuler. I just graduated out of IIT-BHU. And at Stimuler, we use voice AI to make people speak better. That's the whole goal. And we have users in over 200 countries. gradCapital was the first one to back us last year when we were in our third year of college.
Yeah, very interesting. He was in third year and he'll talk about his Y Combinator interview and experience there. But
Though great, good to see you folks investing in students and in campuses. There's a lot of talent that is sitting in India's colleges. So it makes sense. The idea makes sense to me. Right? I'm glad you guys are doing that. Obviously back in 2012 when I graduated that time, there was this whole thing around startups was not so big. But yeah, even back then, I could imagine that there were so many students who are really bright, who generally go for jobs in Microsoft, Facebook, Google kind of companies, right? But yeah, if some of them had started that time, it could have been wonderful.
Yes. What we want to do here today is capture your stories from campuses. And we want to start with, how did you enter at IIT Roorkee? How did you decide? What is the feeling when you entered? What is the feeling before it? What is the mindset? What is the aspiration? Yeah.
To be frank, I think after boards, after 10th, I don't think I was, I didn't think I'll get into IIT. So there was I wasn't very academically top student, So that time there was this concept of extended merit list where IIT, JEE used to publish ranks till 10,000.
Okay.
So that my aim was that hey, if I prepare well, I'll probably land in top 10,000 ranks. That will be a great outcome. That was also very ambitious for me at that point. So I wasn't thinking of getting into IIT when I started preparing. I thought I'll get into some other institute, right? But after 2 years of rigorous preparation and everything, I thankfully, gracefully got a rank in like top 1,000. And I always sort of loved computers since childhood. So I loved programming even before, like in 7th, 8th, 9th, like I used to just write random small programs. So felt like I'll go for computer science, wherever I get that, like, it was even in my mind, like even before the exam, like even if I get computer science elsewhere, then I'll probably go elsewhere and not go into an IIT instead of taking, some other branch. So I got that in Roorkee. I got computer science in Roorkee, thankfully. That's how I ended up landing in IIT Roorkee. I think once I got there, like, I felt very good, like, that I got like into IIT, which was not the thing that I had started with. And that too, I got computer science because a lot of people, others who were, who had started JEE preparation with me and who had given the exams, couldn't get that, right? So I was really happy with whatever was there, and I was really grateful, yeah, this is amazing. There's a great outcome. I should like look forward to life and look to doing better things, So I came into college with a lot of self-confidence that way.
So, आप बिहार से हो ना?
Yeah.
Where?
Patna.
Patna. Okay. So, personally, I am also from Bihar, Saharsa.
Okay.
So, मतलब मेरे को ये पूछना था, particularly थोड़ा सा out of what we are discussing, and we will come back to clubs and all. But primarily, जब आप college से IIT Roorkee से Microsoft गए, right? And I'm doing a little bit of generalization here, but let's assume कि जो बिहार parents होते हैं, it's a little difficult to convince right now because of startups. उस time पे, there were even fewer startups. So, when you wanted to maybe like say leave Microsoft to build a startup,
yeah.
So आपके parents को convince करना, how was it? Particularly because also they had a benchmark, right? Like their son is earning 1 CR right now, and they are starting something else. So how was that part? Personally, for me, it's a funny story. Like it was really difficult. So just wanted to understand कि आपके लिए कैसी थी वो journey?
No, you're right. I mean, like going into Microsoft, going to US, like it's sort of a dream come true for me and for my family as well. Definitely like that 1 CR package. It's like there's a lot of there are a lot of dollars in it, and it definitely is a very attractive number, right? I thought like once I came into college, like I've always felt like I'll make my own life decisions, right? So. And I wasn't enjoying my job at Microsoft, so and I wanted to do this, right? So that was clear to me that look, I'm gonna do this. I definitely want my family support, but this is not contingent on it. First of all, like that is very important, right? Because I felt like I have to make my own life decisions. I can't let others drive that, right? So that was one. And then when I think it came time to convince them, like I talked to them, said, look, I want to come back to India and start this startup. So it was not an easy conversation, and the thing that was, they asked like, okay, like, how much will you earn, right? And I was like, I won't earn anything. It'll be zero for quite some time, for like few months, years, I don't know, right? So that was very crazy. That shocked them, and they were like, this doesn't make sense, right? This is not. So then I went back. Then I thought like, how do I convince them? And like, if logic doesn't work, like emotion, try something emotional. So then I went back to my father, my mother, and said, look, if I do this, I'll come back to India, right? I'll be near you. So that will be amazing, right? If you don't let me do this, then I'll stay back in US, and it might be the case that I never come back to India, right? And then you'll feel really bad about that you're not able to see me most of the times, like see me once a year probably, right? I someday like I'll marry and have kids or whatever, all of that will be in US. So you'll miss out on all those experiences. So that just made them very emotional. So they are like, no, we want you to be near us. That's like, and there are a lot of stories around, like parents exchange a lot of horror stories, like, someone's son went to US and then never got lost touch with family.
Plus newspaper में वगैरह में भी नाम आता है.
Yeah.
US में.
When we qualified for Roorkee or got jobs, and also some things came in Patna local newspaper, right? There were always these things like, oh, someone's son was in US and then they just went and married and they didn't inform the family also. They have been like
Very typical
thing, yeah. There are like horror stories like that. So I was like, I just played on that a little bit as it look, it'll be great for you guys to give me a blessing, and that's how like they sort of came around. And ultimately, what worked is that I said, look, I'll visit you almost every 2-3 months. You can visit me. We can spend time together. I'll be there at home for Diwali, for Chhat, for Holi, right? And they were very happy with that part. And ultimately, life will work out, right? I mean, we'll get another job. If not this, I'll get some other job. So they had confidence that I'll do something positive, and that's what ultimately worked.
And Akshay, I mean, you also come from a conservative, and when we funded you, you were in third year. No chance of dropping out or like years ahead of. When we funded you, we didn't know if you'll sit for placement, but just seemed interesting. And then you applied to YC also. How was that experience? And
So I think तभी COVID चला था. So it was slightly easier. I don't think we would have even started अगर वो pure college होता तो, because it's just way too many things. And I was like a part of 7-8 college clubs and all. So maybe it was just even bigger. But obviously, COVID में you had a lot of time and all. But then YC के application में there's this question, right? Like, would you drop out or would you spend 1 year at this if we select you? And we just feel no at that. मतलब हमने feel किया कि no, even if you select us, we are not going to drop out. And we were like, चलो ठीक है, मतलब this is just like a application to structure your thoughts and all those things. But they called us for an interview. And they interviewed us for 5-10 minutes. They were like, देखो सब सही है, ये बताओ कि तुम लोग drop out करोगे कि नहीं करोगे. And I was like, this is not really my decision as a only, because obviously we were in third year as well, so we didn't have this sort of factor as well. We have got a job and stuff, and plus two of our co-founders had got PPOs those time, PNG and Oracle se. So their parents were like, obviously there's no way कि तुम अपना PPO छोड़ो and then ये करो. And similarly, my parents are also. Everyone is from Bihar, Jharkhand, UP, तो वो factor थोड़ा सा और heightened हो गया. So all of our parents are like, देखो, if you want to do a startup, do it, ठीक है? And we will take this decision next year. जब तुम लोग graduate कर रहे होगे कि should you continue it or not. But right now, there is no way if you're gonna drop out. So we kind of like refused YC. Not refused, we said them कि यार हम लोग manage कर लेंगे attendance वगैरह. And they kind of agreed on call, but later मतलब उन्होंने mail भेज दिया कि sorry. But yeah, so it was fun.
That's okay. It's fine.
And Shashank, what was the aspiration when you were in first year? Like, what did you think कि this is like a really good end goal? Like, this is when I'll make it.
मतलब आप पहले programming कर रहे थे, so you started with COPS, मतलब वो भी coding society आपकी and all.
In first year, like applied to like I liked coding, but first year though was just like let me just try out different things, what works, what doesn't work, and I think there was some technical group in college, IMG, so that didn't happen. So that was like sidelined. Then I got into this college group called Chittas, which is a literary magazine.
Yes.
So in that, like there was something around setting up the website and learning Photoshop. So actually, I learned Photoshop, and I did few designs, like few ad designs and few basic designs, and that was fun. That was good. So I liked, so I experimented with some of those things, right? But ultimately, like I think it was more like I tried studying in first year, so I got like some GPA, some CG.
Was it good?
Okay, I think it was around 8. Okay, so it's not too high, not too low, but what I remember is that like even getting an 8 was like a lot of effort, honestly, and I didn't enjoy putting in so much effort.
And first year it was all the courses, not just programming.
It was all the courses, yeah. Programming was like probably like 5-10% of it.
Yeah.
So after first year, then I took a call, this ACADS thing is not for me. Like I won't be able to study and score marks and mug up so much information basically. So I'll do my own thing. Like what I like, I'll do that instead of like going after a typical academics route. I think that was a good call. I think that worked out well.
So did you try anything cult as well? Yeah, for like purely
cult as in?
Cultural, anything cultural, like LED music, anything like that?
Not music. Yeah, I think we had a good group of friends. We used to travel around, like go to like Haridwar and Rishikesh. That was fun. I think some of us like would do some random development and some hackish project that was fun, right? Generally, like
What
it
were
is,
those hackish projects? What are some hackish projects that you saw or you did?
we had organized like some, some technical competition. So I think in Roorkee, I think it still happens. Like there's this coding competition that happens called Insomnia. So I had helped organize it in first year. Like first year I was sort of a junior member of the team. There were seniors who mostly ran that competition. But I think it was a good experience. We had built a website for Insomnia as well. And that was a good just some of these small things are good experience, right? I think my focus generally was like, okay, either I'm traveling or I'm studying or I'm doing something, where we are building certain things, right? So at least that way, then you are active a little bit. And that worked well in first year. Like that, the first year itself passes very quickly because actually there is a lot of workload on attendance and coursework that is there, especially if you are taking it seriously. At least in first year, I took it very seriously, even though didn't score like great grades.
And how did it progress as you went from second, third, fourth year, and then
Yeah, I think it kept getting narrowed down. Like in second year, somewhere like in the middle of the second year, like I took a call that like this ACADS thing is not going to be my main focus. That's gonna change, right? I started focusing a lot more on. I decided like I like maths, right? And there was this whole thing that time, probably still is, in terms of like learning algorithms and taking part and participating in coding competitions. So I started working on that. I started participating in coding competitions and getting better at it. Generally, I like maths, right? So that took a lot of time, and I think, just getting better on that, from going from 0 to 1 and getting those skill sets. I spent a lot of time there itself, right? So I think these were like two areas, like, web development, and then I think coding competitions. These two areas were mostly where I spent a lot of time in second year. Other than that, like I still like kept taking part in like the technical festival and the cultural festival, and doing something as part of those festivals, something as part of the literary magazine Chitters. All of those kept happening on the side as well as the side activities primarily, right? And ACADS went down the priority order too. So my grades suffered, but I think that's okay. So it's like, those are gone days, yeah.
You have got a PPO na, probably Microsoft say, you did a placement.
Yeah. So actually, I was one of the lucky ones. Like at the end of second year, I went for a research internship in US.
Minnesota, yeah.
So that happened by chance, because we had started working on a data mining project with one of the professors. We started working on some sort of data mining project, and through that we got a research internship in US. So that was pretty cool. Like we've in like a 10-week internship in University of Minneapolis, we did very solid research. So I actually wrote a research paper which got published in NASA journal. So that was and that was also like at the end of second year itself, like when that whole thing happened. So in fact, like in US, in Minneapolis, when I went, like in the research lab, a lot of people, when they went for internships, like usually would travel a lot, like let's see the world, let's see US or Europe or whatever they're in. But I was like working like 10-12 hours a day practically. Like you're working on very interesting time series research problem. So the problem, that statement that we were working on, was predicting if any piece of land on Earth has gone through changes, so whether it has gone through forest to urban area or forest to agricultural area,
Geographical changes,
or as like urban area to a park, those kind of things, or if any forest fire has happened. So it was very interesting. Like it was a very interesting project, and we took a very data science approach to it, and we got good results out of it. So in fact, like after doing that internship, I probably thought like, hey, like there's not a bad option. Like I can actually go for a PhD at the end of the 4 years. I can go for a research career, in US in one of the universities, and that might be something good to pursue as well.
So at some point you were involved in like deeply technical work, like either manipulating bits or understanding the atom world through manipulating bits. And suddenly at Razorpay, you have to hire senior people and tell them, hey, this is not a good job, or like it's just a different thing to do, which you were doing in college. Did you feel that shift? That suddenly you have to manage people in more adultish job?
Actually, I started managing people in college itself. So I think in third year, like, some of us came together, right, and thought like, the technical culture in the college can be a lot better for students. There wasn't enough focus on like doing really cool technical projects, and bringing it out to the world. Like I felt like, IIT Roorkee is a very good technical institution, but there's too much focus on academics. Like we need to sort of pull it back and put a lot more focus on doing creative projects, new projects, application development, right? So we sort of formed this group, SDS Labs, me, Harshal, my co-founder, few other people like Shobit and all. We came together and started that. And as part of that, then when we started that group, like, I started hiring, I mean, not hiring, right? I mean, recruiting
people.
A lot of students.
Without pay though.
Without pay. And that was tougher, because people had to be like really passionate to do that instead of like, because what we were saying is, hey, while your acads is okay, but you should put some attention in doing some of these creative projects, right? And I think we kicked it out of the park, because that was like, when we started that group and when we launched it and when we did the projects, it became the most popular group in college, the most sought after group in college, in fact, and just took the technical culture at IIT Roorkee to another level.
It still is. We went to Roorkee 4 months back.
Yeah, and we did so many cool things. Like I remember like we had published the whole JEE rank list, which got a lot of attention from media as well as from the JEE administration. And
did it create any controversy?
Some controversy. It definitely created a bunch of controversy as well. But in hindsight, I think we handled it pretty well.
But how did you gather ranks of?
Yeah, that was a secret that everyone wanted to know. And we raised funding from from IIT Roorkee administration, which I think is tougher than raising funding for Razorpay. Yeah. So we got close to like, I think, if I remember, like close to like 1 crore of funding for buying equipment in the lab. We put proper AC setup. We bought like multiple servers. So we had bought like a Blade server, which was top end server. During that time, we bought like very good monitors and CPUs, Xeon CPUs. So that I think, and we had to do so much work to get approvals from administration. We had to move files from 10 different places, right? I think that was a great experience. So running that group, developing, like we did like 9-10 application development, and then we raised so much funds from administration and built out like a very good lab, which is running till this date. So I think that was our first experience of like running something, meaningfully, right? And that gave a lot of experience. And that is something that helped me prepare a lot for the future stint, sort of at Razorpay.
So particularly, SDS Labs, where you raise funding from IIT Roorkee, and that is a very difficult thing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But let's throw us if we move forward, आप Microsoft में थे, you come back to India, right? Now the first thing which I have seen in student founders around me, and obviously true for us as well, that we tend to go with consumer problems, primarily because consumers आसपास हैं, you can see them and all those things. Plus there's little less ops involved as a whole. Okay. But for your case, for example, and I will just share an experience. So जैसे हमें अपने startup के लिए, we were thinking about B2B versus B2C, and we went to a lot of these coachings कि यार चलो partner कर लेते हैं, let's. Yeah. And the reaction was कि यार बच्चे हो तुम लोग अभी just chill down, maybe like coming a year after and all those things. And considering banks are much more traditional than coachings, like how was that? क्या मतलब अगर आप starting में जाते थे तो how was their reaction कि
yeah, no, I think it was very tough. Like, we were very naive, which was okay. Like, I think I felt like, I mean, even looking back, I feel like naivety sort of was a strength rather than a weakness. Like, we would go to banks asking for a payment gateway and they would politely throw us out. They would think like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we would go in t-shirt and jeans and they wouldn't take us seriously, right? But we learned from it. Then we started going in shirt and trousers, right? And we contacted a bunch of people through LinkedIn. We figured that, the payments thing is run from like the central offices of banks in Delhi and Mumbai. So then we contacted a bunch of folks in those places. Then we would go in shirt and pant. Then later we started going in like, a proper blazer and coat with a proper business plan and all, right? And over time, I think over time, as we became more professional in our just behavior, I think people also took us more seriously, right? And you need to sometimes just find 1 or 2 people who will really truly believe in you, because that's what creates like a massive change. I mean, that's what helps you propel forward, right? And we were able to do that, right? We were able to get 1 or 2 people in banks who were very forward-looking, slightly younger themselves, graduated from like XLRI or IIM. So they were able to understand like what we were doing, right? But the thing is, like we faced multiple problems. Initially, when we started, we also wanted to sell to schools and colleges.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's the same story. Like when we used to go to a college to sell like payment systems, they used to think like we have come for admissions, and they would tell like, the admissions is closed for this year, so we should come back next year. And like, no, we are not here for admission. So then they're like, why do you want to meet the chancellor, vice chancellor, or the principal of the school? Like, we want to sell this payment systems, right? So it took a lot of effort to reach the principal and then to the finance team, but ultimately we couldn't convert a single school onto our platform. So that was a problem, and we then pivoted from that to like solving for startups, because that's where we got more traction from SMEs in our co-working space. So it was not an easy journey, but when I had come back to India, I think from Microsoft, I think me and Harshil, we had discussed that let's give 2 years to this thing.
Okay.
Let's give ourselves permission. I mean, we gave ourselves permission to fail. We gave ourselves permission to, try it out end to end and, do everything that we can to make it successful and not worry about rejections, whatever rejections happen, right? I think that worked wonderful, because if even though we were not successful for like almost 1 year, I think just having that freedom and just having that belief that, let's continue, we'll keep doing something, ultimately turned out to be fruitful, and then we were able, the payment gateway thing took off with SMEs and startups.
I have a very small follow-up here. For example, like your journey from say IIT Roorkee CSE to Microsoft to SDS Labs getting popular, you didn't really face a lot of rejections in this way, right? Like, from in an IIT, you don't really face that many rejections as particularly. That's true for. And once you go there, you start facing a lot of rejections, जो initially होगा. So, did it occur to you, for example, कि let's, ये B2B छोड़ो, like let's make something consumer, एक app बना लो, and just like anything like that. Did it occur to you, for instance, ताकि make best you sort in the cycle and stuff? And if that occurred, like how did you kind of navigate this thing? When you say कि you gave yourself 2 years, was that कि आप 2 years बिना pivot के करोगे, you will stick at this and see if this really goes the way you want it to? Or was it more like कि you want to do something for 2 years and then, so how did you navigate this decisions उस time पे particularly?
See, the rejection part is not fully true, as I told you, like, I was not a very academically bright student in like 10, 11, whatever, right? JEE happened. We obviously really worked hard at preparing for JEE, and that happened. But even in college, like, I wouldn't be the one scoring like really good marks, right? There were college groups that I tried for, and I didn't get any into most of those that I tried for, honestly, right? So it's not that the rejections don't happen in life, but it's more a scenario like, how seriously do you take those rejections, right? And when do you say that, like, those rejections are not personal, man. Like, it's not, the rejection is not an evaluation of your capability and say, look, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. It's just a point in time, data point that, your current approach, your current way that you are sort of dealing with this thing, that's probably is not providing enough value to the person on the other end, right? And at least that's been my outlook, So that is why, like, whatever rejections that I faced, I think, like, I was okay with it. Even if I was not okay with it, like, I would come back and think like, okay, I need to work hard. I need to do something which I enjoy, which adds value, rather that, I never let myself stop doing work because of rejections. Even today, like, if things don't move, if we don't get results, I don't stop putting effort, which is like a thing that, people get disheartened, they take it personally, they go into depression, right? I sort of channel that energy back into like doing something positive, right? We'll keep putting effort towards payments, towards the financial problems of setting up a payment gateway, and try and find a niche to get into. Like, every time we would be successful on something, we felt like we are on top of the world. We have won everything. That's it. Like, this is the peak, and it's everything will go upward from here. So I think that optimistic, I think that optimistic attitude like really just helps, right? I'm a very optimistic person that way. And That is why like when we got the approval from the bank to go ahead with the payment gateway, that took almost like 4-5 months of effort. But once we got that approval, we were like, life is sorted. This is done. Like, we'll win the world. Like that was the feeling that I had, right? Then we had a bunch of challenges on compliance. Then we had a bunch of challenges with like selling to schools and colleges. And it was a really bad time, that way, like things didn't look positive, right? But again, like, we're like, okay, let's just keep trying, right? And we have promised ourselves that we'll give 2 years. Let's just go with a different approach. Let's just go to a different audience. Let's just go to a different persona, different POC. Let's try something different every week and see if we get results, And we didn't get results for a very long time. But when we did get results, like we would double down on it like crazy and we'll say, you know what, like let's just figure out how we can scale this to the max that is possible.
Spent your college life very uniquely, right? First technically oriented, then started a club, right? And got public attention, hired people for that.
Not hired people, recruited students.
Recruited people for no pay and motivating them. That's harder than hiring.
Yeah.
And so that's a unique set of experiences, college. And do you now look back and feel, hey, those unique experiences affected how I decided something today? And that's an advantage that I have.
See, the experience is definitely an advantage, in many ways, because as part of like starting that club, the STS labs and running it, and we had like almost 35 students as part of that club. I used to take lectures, public lectures, on programming languages and on doing like creative projects. And those lectures were attended by like 150 students plus, more than 150 students. So, my lectures were more popular than the professors in the college. I really enjoyed those, like, because I felt like, even if some students get motivated and, take that as a positive path, I think it was great, right? And it's not just, I think, like I learned Photoshop, I learned computer programming. Then we had gone to that ACM ICPC contest that happens. So we were in top 5 in India. We just missed top 3 by a whisker, but we were in top 5 in India. And I had taken the goal that either I'll get to like the finals, the next level, or someone else from Roorkee should. So we even formed a group to manage that, the programming and algorithms group. That also still exists to this date. And they were able to send multiple finalists from India for the ICPC at the world level, right? So even that became successful, right? Then even the data mining part, like we did we published projects. I published a paper in NASA. Then in college, like we did our BTP, the BTech project, and we won the best project award in college. And we were able to publish a paper in IBM conference in India. So that was also amazing. Like we had gone to that conference, and most of the people there were like PhD students. We were like one of the very few, like probably there were like 2-3 teams from like undergrad, and we were one of the very few. And even then we won like one of the best paper award in some category. We won like a best paper award, right? So all this, the research experience, the running the group experience, the competitive programming experience, all of that has been very helpful, for me to run this technical startup at the end of the day, because unlike most companies, Razorpay is highly technical in nature, extremely technical in nature, right? Especially for the generation of companies that came up from, let's say, like 2010 to 2020. We are probably among the most technical company that has been able to scale up, right, and grow, right? So I think having that technical background absolutely helped in figuring this out. But I think the entrepreneurship thing is separate, because that I think is a very different thing. That part of it was slightly innate as well, down to this thing that, let's just do something creative and put it out there and see how people use it. That I think it was that thing to say, I just enjoy building products and seeing people use those products. That was the thing that ultimately led to the path of entrepreneurship, because I was building products at Microsoft as well, but I was a very small part of a very large machinery, and I couldn't see what is the impact that I'm doing in Microsoft has on the end customers, on people, how it is adding value to their life. And if I couldn't see, my products getting used, I didn't feel good about it. So I was like, let's just take something, right? And again, the whole shift from Microsoft to startup was a journey in itself that didn't happen overnight, But at least I was very happy when we were in lab, when we were doing multiple applications, we were building products, and I wanted to get back to that feeling in some sense.
Obviously, like building something for the customers is very hard, and whatever investments we did over past 2-3 years, and we realized that people need to have high amount of self-belief, right? And some events need to happen in their life that make them feel that they have high self-belief. And JE obviously is something for a lot of them, but there's sometimes other things also, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you had a series of like moments of celebrations. So what was those things that anchored your self-belief, that you feel, यार उससे मैं निकल गया अगर तो मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ?
Many moments, right? I think JE was definitely one, but that feeling fades away like in 6 to 9 months when you see so many smart people who have.
And your college is full of it.
The college is full of it, right? So, and JE is just one point in time. You can't be like just sitting on, hey, I've qualified JE, I've gone into IIT. Like this is what it means, right? I mean, that's the worst thing to do, in fact, right? No, I think I'll tell you, like, I think I learned Photoshop. I just loved that. I was able to organize like a programming competition, and I just loved that whole experience. The fact that went into this internship in Minneapolis and I was able to write a paper. That was very, very empowering. That gave me a lot of confidence that even as an undergrad I've been able to publish a paper in a NASA conference, which people even in PhD level have really struggled with, right? That gave me a lot of confidence. Then I think SDS Labs was a whole different level because that I think getting funding from college administration, I think that is crazy. And and I think I played my role there as part of the group to make that happen. And attracting people to the group, making it the best group in college. Even though it just got started within like 1.5 year period, right? And people used to clamor to get into that group. And getting like a group of 20-30 people to put out multiple amazing applications as part of like, SDS Labs, and those applications were used by the whole of college to a great extent. Like everyone in college relied on those applications. All of these things was amazing. And, I got a lot of confidence out of that. Then I think the BTech project that we did, that was a very crazy, good project, and in fact, I'll tell you something that the BTech project that we did, I actually wanted to continue it. I was like, let's see if we can do something around it. But the people that I did it, they were like, they want to pursue PPO. They want to go for that.
What was the BTech project?
My BTech project, I think it was around image search. So we had like sort of built an algorithm that could search for a particular image among like billions of images.
Okay.
So like image search is usually a complex problem, especially back in 2012. So if you have to, let's say, like, we had done this, like you have to do, let's say, eye authentication, like, authentication using your eyesight, using your iris. So that itself, like if you take an iris and say, okay, hey, whose person iris is this? And you have to tell that in real time from, let's say, a database of like millions of people or 100 million people. So that's a very different, hard problem, at least at that time. And we were able to develop an algorithm. So we had developed that algorithm. I think the next phase for us was like, okay, how do we sort of commercialize it in a way? And of course, that there can be multiple ways of commercializing it. They can jump into multiple applications, right? But the fact that we were able to develop a unique algorithm which works well was itself a beautiful thing. And that's why we won the best project for that. But my other people who were there with me, I think they didn't want to sort of take down that path of figuring out.
That person in college who was telling everyone, yaar apna kuch karte hain, why are we? Were you that? Some people build up that image.
Not really. I think I was a doer in college. Like I was always like, let's do something. Not ki apna kuch karte hai. I don't think that was a time when people were like, startup karte hai, like how it is today, right? Startup was not an option, viable option for most people.
Right.
I think it was more like, let's kuch karte hai, right? Kuch karte hai, let's do something, let's build something. And then let's continue that, right? So even the BTech project was like, let's not end it here. Let's, even if we go for a job, that's okay. All of us will go for a job, but let's find out a commercial application. Let's find out something, some way we can put it out. We can continue getting deriving value out of it and giving value out of it, right? And that will be exciting. Because that is like a path that is not like a set path, and that is like an adventure, and it didn't need to, at least I didn't see it that way, that hey, it's like a doing job or doing this, and maybe at some point it does come down to it, but I was very happy to just pursue and go down that road and seeing like how does it sort of eventually pan out. But yeah, other people said no, and that was okay.
So obviously your life had a lot of moments of self-belief. Right? It's just wonderful that way. But obviously there must be moments where that got shaken, right? Where you were doubting that, can I pull something off?
Like, in a very specific scenario of this, say for example, like when you started, I don't know too much about the fintech ecosystem at that point of time. But just imagine I'm imagining that there would be competition.
Yeah.
Definitely there would be. Yeah. And it would be like for a problem as big as this. So suppose there were people who were much older than you, and आपको VC को convince करना था. You had to convince yourself in a way कि यार, like we can still build this. It's just a tech thing, whatever. So did Razorpay be having a tech-led approach that helped you because you knew that you could beat anyone in tech in that sort of way, or was it more like, how did you deal with that?
When we started, I think we did a lot of research, right? We had the self-belief that we can do this. Okay, I think that's like very important. I got a very good co-founder. I got lucky in that aspect, because I asked like 5-6 people to, let's try something of our own. Again, not from the point of a startup, but like doing a side project, like over weekends and putting it out. So most people said no once they got into a job. I think my co-founder Harshal was not like the first person I asked. He was almost like 5th, 6th person. But he was the one who said, "Yaar, theek hai, okay, let me."
Those people regret, kind of.
I don't know. They lost. But when we started Razorpay, right? I think when we talked to people and said, "Look, we are doing this payment gateway," like most of the people had this typical reaction, "Oh, it will need a lot of capital. It needs a lot of domain experience. You need to be from fintech background, or you need to be from banking background, right? Then only you can do this." A lot of people were also, a lot of VC especially, were also like, you are late to the market. Like this game is played out. There are already large incumbents that are present, and catching up to them is not going to be possible. Right? So I think a lot of that skepticism was generally there, right? But I think for us, the anchor was that on the ground, like people who try to accept payments, any business, that experience was broken. So it doesn't matter how much funding anyone has or how much, history anyone has. The fact that on the ground customers are not having great experience and we can solve for it. I think that was our ground truth. That was our North Star. And anything else didn't matter, right?
And did it shake, like that confidence shake at some point?
A lot of points. I mean, there were a lot of points where our confidence would shake, or again, like when we are going to banks and asking for a payment gateway, and we are like, we don't know what we are doing, but we're just going, right? Then we are solving for compliance problems, right? Then we are going to schools and colleges. Then there were many such scenarios, right? I think what worked well for us, I would say, is that both me and Harshal had this rule that both of us won't feel down at the same time. So we were like, if I feel down, he will pull me up. I just say, no, this is okay. Like, let's just continue. We have 2 years. And vice versa as well. Like if he fell down, then I'll be like, don't worry, we'll figure out something. We'll get a great job. If nothing else, let's just keep going.
Is that a good reason why single founder companies have some disadvantage over 2 co-founder?
I think if you are an inexperienced single founder, it's definitely very tough. You have to be like a lot more mentally resilient and multitasking to sort of manage that, right? I think 2 is like a ideal size in that sense. Maybe 3 also. More than 3, again, too many people probably, right? But 2 and 3 definitely make a lot of sense in terms of like sharing the load, having the good camaraderie going on, right? Having a good rapport going on, and being able to attack the problem. So that is why at least I think the most successful companies in the world have been like 2 people companies to a great extent, right? Whether Apple, Microsoft, Google's, a bunch of those, like Facebook, they had like 3-4 people that were like great as a team, right? That had started. So that is why I haven't seen any large company which is like a single founder company, unless the founder himself comes with a lot of experience, right? So in India, like you have, Red with Kunal Shah, but Kunal Shah, I think is that, very
It's also like second time, third time,
it's easier, right? Or otherwise, you are an experienced person who comes with like a lot of domain knowledge. when you're starting as a fresher, I think definitely helps to have like a co-founder going along with you.
And like you talked about hustle as a co-founder, but also about your founding team, right? So when you were recruiting, though, like you don't really have an understanding of a culture, right? Like you were in Microsoft for a year, but startups ka culture kya hona chahiye, whatever. You didn't really have that too much like understanding of that, for example. So how do you set up about initial culture? Was it mostly about putting up guys who will fit with you and hustle, like who you will bond with, a college group, peer group type ka? Was it something like that? Or did you have a different approach where you just wanted to make the best, I don't know, credibility team? I don't know, anything like that. So, what was your framework for building this initial
No, I
team?
think the initial team that we built was from our network. It was mostly guys we knew are great because we had worked with them before as part of like, our college group in SDS Labs. So as part of SDS Labs, I had worked with almost probably like 60, 70 people, during like 3-4 years. So we just picked the best people from there, who would be willing to take a bet on us or work with us in some sense, right? So that's how like our initial 7-8 people came, and they were really amazing. They have been rock stars for us, and most of them have been with us even today. So that's one. But second, I think from a culture perspective, see, the culture is really set by the founders to a great extent, and for us, at least for me, the guiding North Star was that, I want to build a company where I love to work, right? And I want to build a company where, we do right by people. These were like two very basic principles that we went with, right? And if I just go with that approach, like, I want to build a company where I like to work as a person, then what are those attributes that I like, right? And we answered those questions, and we sort of went deep into with that level that, hey, we want people who are intelligent, who take ownership, who can, run through problems at a good speed, right? And who don't need like continuous handholding, right? But also like who want that independence to be able to do things without like micromanagement, So with those principles is where we sort of went, and the people who then came in, they sort of bought into those principles in some way via osmosis or via their behavior, right? And they sort of fit into that, right? If they didn't fit, then it wouldn't work out, and that's what carried forward. And I think that is why even today, like, those principles hold true, and that's why even today, like, I would bet that Razorpay has like among the best culture among any of the scaled up startups that are there.
Obviously, hiring early people when you were just starting out, you have to convince so many people, and you basically have to talk about your ambition to so many people. Were there moments where people, obviously there were so many moments where people would pull down the ambition by giving a really sound reason why this won't work?
Yes.
Did that sometimes stuck? Did that market size is small, or is it not possible? Did something?
No, as I said a lot of times, there's no dearth of those kind of conversations where
Did something stick in your head? Okay, that
No.
seems slightly rational.
nothing, because I think what stuck to us was the opposite. When someone talked about how big it can be, like someone talked about, I think it was Paul Graham of Y Combinator. So we had like a half-hour conversation with him. And he talked about, like if you guys solve payments for India, like that is like a huge thing that can be really big. And when he said that with conviction, I think that stuck to us a lot more. So then we were like, you know what, like we haven't aimed as high as what this guy is talking about, and this guy has a lot more credibility, honestly, than most of the other people, right? So that stuck to us, that like if we solve payments in India, that can be like a massive thing in itself, and that raised our ambitions a lot higher,
Would you say YC in general raised your ambition level, right? How big?
I think for sure, like I think YC gave us, I think it was not that we were not aiming high, we were, but I think YC helped us articulate and structure it a lot more, in the sense that, and I think just going through that program, there were a lot of excellent people there, a lot of very good founders, all of whom were struggling, but all of whom were trying and, trying to do better. So I think that framework, that environment really pushed us, right? And they also had a bunch of people coming in to talk to you, who have built great companies, right? But we're part of YC like few years back, like 3-4 years back, 5 years back, right? So all of that has a good rub-on effect. And, it just increased our ambition in that sense that, gave it structure to it, gave us ways to like articulate it a lot better, right? And give us a lot more belief that if this is something we can do it, like even though we are completely new, even though we don't have domain knowledge, even though we don't come from financial industry, even though we may not have raised like a lot of funds, it's absolutely fine. Like there are so many people who have sort of done that in the past, then we can also do it.
And just also going little to the last question itself. So, for example, when you say you had your early bunch of people from people you knew, so is it fair to say कि it's like a club structure, college club structure? Just for instance, college clubs में क्या होता है? Like if we are building a drone, for example, we don't really care too much about the structure, like ये hierarchy वगैरह वगैरह. You just care about getting it done, getting that thing built and whatever. So initially, did something like this occur in Razorpay as well, जहाँ पे maybe you didn't have too much of structure in terms of your culture, like exactly roles ये हैं, ये whatever that happens with every startup, but still, was it more resembling a college club sort of, where you had a bunch of people who you knew towards a goal, not much structure?
I don't know if it is like college club. I would say like that's how all startups should be. Was that we hired like very good generalists, right? People who can work across like back end, front end, or sales, operations, finance, right? It doesn't matter what it matters is the problem statement that they are solving for, and they would work across domains or boundaries to sort of solve for that problem statement. Right? So very high agency people, who are able to adapt that problem and go after it in a very structured manner. But the structure it's not to, and I think we had an intrinsic bar of quality in the sense that, look, it's a financial product, so it can't be broken, right? You can't put out something which is half-baked. But we took a call that, the customer-facing parts need to be like absolutely polished. We need to, what the customer interacts with, that need to be really good. So we paid a lot of attention to our onboarding journey, to our checkout, which became like industry-leading checkout over time. Even back then, even as a 10-person company, the front end that we had was better than like 1,000-person company that they had put out, right? But on the back end, everything was broken. Everything was held together with like tape and whatnot. Like, I remember like even when we were doing crores of rupees of transaction, like all the backend settlements was manual. That every day we would wake up and we would push the file to make the settlement happen. And if we miss that, then the settlement will get stuck, the payment settlement, which would have been a nightmare experience for the businesses that we are serving. So we never missed that manual part, but we did a lot of manual stuff for a very long time. And it was okay. I think that those are parts that didn't matter so much from an, that they need to be the best. What mattered was like what the consumers are interacting with, what the business are interacting with, and that was top notch, So we had these strategic calls, like, what makes sense for us to focus on our energy on and get right. And what are things that we can get right at a later point of time and it's okay, fine, right? So I think having that intelligence, and this is not like having that intelligence and knowing like what matters to your customer and how do you differentiate, that's what, right? You do that well. And the guys that we had, the people that we had, I think they had a very high quality bar on execution, even though they had zero experience. They have been among the best in the industry, even today, is what I would say. And that took us very, very far.
The people you hired early on would be your friends. You probably went on trips with them, and that's something like that.
My friends, or not necessarily like, my friends, but I have definitely worked with them. That was kind of the, I think, it helped that me and Harshil had a great reputation in college, So I think, the lectures that I used to take that are attended by like a lot of people, right? The lab itself had a lot of people associated with it, right? So I think all of that had accumulated, had an effect that I knew a lot of people in my network, at least from college days, in my batch, in my senior batch. So all of these things, like the SDS labs, the fact that we won like 5th rank in the coding competition, ASIM ICPC, right? So all of these things combined, the lectures I used to, all of these things combined had contributed to that. I think Harshil used to have a very hacker kind of reputation. Like he had a reputation for like, hacking things. So actually hacking things. So that I think again, like, he had a very good street cred that way. So when we went and, that we are doing this thing and we want people to associate with us, right? And, some of them were still in college in their last year. They didn't have anything. They might have a job as in PPO and all, but they could work with us in their last year, right? So they were happy to. And we handpicked the people out of that, right? And when they completed their college, they came and joined us, right? Or if a few people were already working, they came and joined us post YC in the sense, right? So yeah, so quite a few of these things came together.
So was it when you hired these people that you knew in some capacity, was it difficult to manage at some point in the company? Like was this mixed friendships and work?
No, not at all. It was actually the other way around. We had a great time, because building a startup is like extremely, extremely tough, right? But because we were doing it with friends and because we were doing it with people whom we knew, and we used to work, throughout the day and throughout the night. But we also used to like play a lot of video games. We would go on like road trips, cheap road trips, nothing expensive, right? Just like go for like 20-30 kilometers and go to that waterfall or go to that rock or whatever, right? That is there. Or we would be awake whole night, like, we'll watch a movie once in a while. So I think it was the other way around, that just doing it with people I knew and so we had fun with actually made the whole journey easier, because we had a lot of fun while building the startup. So because there are a lot of tough moments, right? It's a lot of moments you really feel, yeah, what am I doing? What is it going on, right? But for us, because we were surrounded with so many good people, I think even when we had those moments, at least we were happy that we are with people with whom we really like, and I think we have a good time while building the product, while doing this thing with them.
I know a little bit of blanket question, but what is an advice that you'll give to somebody like Akshay who's just starting a company, and someone like who enters a college with an aspiration, with high self-belief, is a doer?
No, that's two very different crowds. So
yes.
Let's take it one at a time, right? So, see, for startup founders, right?
Who decided that we have to commit full time to a startup?
See, the most startup founders' advice is always very simple. That focus on what you can build for customers and how you can add value to people's lives. With whatever product you are building, with whatever thing you are taking on. Don't get enamored with the process of building a product and just devote everything. It's like, hey, I'm building this, and now for next 1 year I'll build this. Like, I know people who have devoted so much time to building a product but never went out and talked to the customers, that it just landed nowhere, right? That's like the biggest mistake people do, right? The first thing is to just focus on saying, am I building something that is adding value to people's lives, right? And then other things follow from there, right? That if something you are building, can you crack a good niche? Can you crack something? Can you get that 0 to 1, that product market fit? By whatever hook and crook, by focusing on the, doing sales or doing very low cost marketing or just figuring out whatever scenario that is there, right? Those are the things then that follow, from there, right? So I think for most startup founders, that only find a good problem statement that you love, that you really love, right? But then go to customers and test the hell out of it, sell the hell out of it, and get adoption. If you don't get adoption, keep tweaking it, keep modifying it. Whether you call it a pivot or whether you call it something else, it doesn't matter, right? If you do small tweaks, it's not a pivot. If you do a big tweak, it's called a pivot, right? So that doesn't matter, because the idea is so new that you are just trying to figure out what is going to land in the market, right? So that process is very interesting. It's very amazing, and doing it in a focused manner definitely helps quite a bit.
And one typical advice has been, building things fast, breaking it, right, and just pushing it, get feedback really quickly, very action oriented with short feedback.
Maybe not. See, I think it depends on the problem statement. Like the problem statement that we took, which was like on the payment side, we knew that it's going to take some time to get it to market, right? But I think we didn't wait. We had to figure out an approach. Like, especially if you're working on a deep tech problem, let's say like AI and all, it might take some time to get that going. But yeah, like how can you break it into like some milestones and still be able to talk to customers and demonstrate the value, right? So we would, while we didn't have the payment gateway ready for a very long time, you would build a front end and we'll go and talk to customers and say, look, this is the product, do you like it or not? Can we sell this to you or not, right? Because there will be people who are very excited by the product, but they would never close. They would never close, right? And it's always like, yeah, I like the product, I like the front end, I like everything, but they just wouldn't close, right? So that used to give us enough signal that whatever we are building, we have to modify our approach to sales or whatever the application that needs to come on top of it, right? So yeah, like that constant feedback loop, constant cycle, I think that's very important, Unless you're working on a very deep technical problem where you know that the technology itself will probably add a lot of value if it comes to fruition, like short builds or short iteration cycles or short, some milestones where you are able to validate it with customers, that helps a lot.
A sponsor question, then maybe you can shift to the second class. But again, back to you hiring people at the beginning, say, or back to your team building size when you were 23, 24. What would be the one thing you would probably like check in someone if you didn't know them already and you are being, so suppose you are back to 22, 23, जब भी आप start कर रहे थे, you are hiring someone in your founding team, and what would be the first thing you would check, जो probably would be a good thing कि यार this guy will work good. If he has worked with you in a club, you know कि हाँ यार ये hacker type का mentality है, they will pull it through. But what are the other thing you would check? Signals.
No, I used to, when I used to interview freshers, especially in the initial days, 2016, 17, that was the thing. Like once we started hiring people whom we didn't know, so I think there were few markers that I used to check for. I think one, like, whether they are passionate for any problem, for something beyond their academics, right? Are they doing a side project, right? Are they creating something, right? How do they approach? Have they solved some problem, actual problem? Even if it is for 10 people, right? Have they actually solved some problem and done something, right? Because 4 years in college is a long time, fairly long time, right? If you have just studied or just played games or just participated in cultural festivals, then that's not meaningful. I mean, just going and organizing cultural festival is like a very low bar in that sense, right? Instead, I would ask, is there any technical topic that you are deeply interested in, right? Where you have done some research or you have read about or you follow what is happening in latest in that industry, right? And there's so many fields, AI, AR, VR, these are the latest fields. Crypto was there, right? Even during my time, data science was big, this mobile was huge, right? I think a lot of people used to were like getting into e-commerce, right? So there has to be something which you are passionate about. There has to be something where you have done some project or you have shown a creative streak, or otherwise there is some problem statement that you have solved for, right? So I used to check for that passion. I used to check for that, like, is there an intrinsic motivation that a person can demonstrate in some sense, beyond the raw intelligence. I think the raw intelligence is important. Obviously, like you want to verify the basic smartness of a person, right? But that in itself is not sufficient, especially in the initial 100 people that we had. We used to hire a lot of people who were high agency, right? Who could work across boundaries in ambiguous environment, right? So that's what, we would primarily sort of check for.
Okay, so just last question, right? What advice would you give to like an IIT Roorkee person who just entered the campus and they're just ambitious, they want to do something?
Yeah, so I would usually I tell this to people that, look, if you've got into IT, I think it's a great thing, right? Or whichever college you are in, I think you have a lot of time ahead of you. The amount of time that students have on their hands is amazing, right? You will never get that amount of time again in your life, right? So do something with it, do some creative work, right? Don't just, you should absolutely increase your technical knowledge or whatever is taught to you in academics. That is fair, that is fine, right? But find problem areas that you are passionate about, and the only way to do it is if you put yourself out there. If you put yourself out there and say, look, okay, let me try these 5 different things and see what spikes my interest, right? And what is also constructive in nature. If you can find a place where you are building something for others, right? Is there something that you can build for others, whether that's an algorithm or a research paper or just a very simple cartoon, right? If you design something that people relate with, you write something that people relate with, right? That's what people should go for, right? And that's what I think people should find, that, in those 4 years, what is their passion, right? What are the problem areas that they are interested in, where they would want to go ahead. And that will only work, that will only happen if you try a bunch of different projects or go deeper into some projects. Another thing that I tell people is that, can you take an idea and run with it for 2 years? Like, I'll tell you something. I have noticed that most people, like students or even non-students, right, usually don't pursue long-term goals. Like, their goals are mostly for like next 1 month or 2 months. They don't actively think about it, right? If you can think of a goal like 2 years ahead, I want to get there, and pursue that. Trust me, it takes you very, very far compared to most other people that is there. Even as adults, it's very difficult for people to think through and say, yeah, this is the goal that I have for that I want to achieve for myself in next 2 years, because it makes people very afraid in some sense, because it's such an ambiguous thing. There is no define. When you're in college, okay, like my first year exams, second year exams, third year exams. So you have a set path and it's easy to follow that path. You have to work hard to get to the next step, but you know what you're gonna get, right? But to take something and say you don't know what you're gonna get, but you want to achieve something and figure out the path on the way, that takes a lot of guts, that takes a lot of commitment, right? And that other thing, there have been multiple points where I have said like, hey, I want to achieve this in next 2 years. And it gives me a lot of structure, it gives me a lot of motivation, because it makes me accountable. I tell it to my friends, then it makes me accountable to my friends in some sense, because I have told it to them, right? And some of this changes as well. 1 year later, I realized, yeah, I'm not enjoying this, right? Maybe this is something else is more exciting, let me go there, right? But that process itself has a lot of value, So I remember that after coming back from my internship, I set a goal that for next 2 years, I'll pursue this research project and do well in it. And then yeah, the B2P, yeah. And then after that, I'll go for PhD, So I did the research project, and of course we did well. But in the process, I realized, this research thing is not for me. It's very slow in that sense, you have to give it a lot of time. I mean, you have to think through a lot more, and it's a sort of a very lonely job, right? And I was more like, I want to build things fast and put it in front of customers. Like, that's what my thing was. So it made me realize that this is not going to work, right? So we shifted gears and we said like, okay, that's fine. I'll do something else, right? But there were multiple such things I did. Hey, I want to come top in ACM ICPC. I want to do this amazing research project. I want to do this amazing labs thing and make it a very sought after thing in college, and change the culture of college. Just setting those goals, long-term goals, 2 years, it was crazy how much progress we could make just because we had those goals, right? And we were like, we will work towards it. Even if you fail, that's very worthwhile to pursue. What happened? I didn't top in ACM ICPC, but I came 5th. When I had started in second year, I wouldn't even know that whether I'm even worthy of coming in top 25 or 30 in India, right? So that's what. So for anyone coming into college, that's what these are the two things, right? Focus on finding your passion, focus on doing constructive things, creative things. And second, as you gain more knowledge about yourself, set long-term goals, 1 year, 2 year goals, and try to pursue those. You will make amazing progress in that direction.
All right. Thanks so much, Shashank, for inviting to your wonderful office and answering questions. And I'm sure students would get inspired, especially by that 2 year horizon thing.
No,
and a lot of people will stop gaming after this. For sure.
No, sure. Yeah, people will do it.
Yeah, but I agree, right? You can't be addicted to it, but it does help. But anyway, thanks so much, Shashank. Thanks so much, Akshay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Akshay.